guys? Welcome to another episode of Fit Business. I'm Matt Weik here with Jimmy Mentis. Jimmy, we got a special guest, kind of got him in late last night. We were kind of brainstorming on what we wanted to talk about, and you're like, hold on, I'll be right back. 2 minutes later, you send me a text. Why don't you intro our guest for this week?
Well, I have a very good friend of mine. He's like a brother to me for, 30 years now? His name is Eric Casaburi. He is the founder of Retro Fitness. He invests in real estate, all that good stuff. The franchises now, Retro Fitness, have surpassed $150 million. So this guy is a success story. I've lived it since he was 15?
14.
14 years old. So I want to welcome to the show. By the way, Merry Christmas.
That's awesome.
A gym. I'm in the back of a gym. That's how you know.
Yes, yeah, you are hands-on. Welcome to the show, Eric. I last night when Matt goes, what do we talk about? Because that's how we do it here. It's like nothing's planned out, right?
Yeah.
What are we doing? I'm like, oh my God, hold on. And and thank you for stopping your day, but I got to tell you, man, I love your story. I lived it. And, tell us, I want to go back. Do you mind?
Yeah, let's listen.
Okay. I want to go back. Powerhouse Gym, Freehold, New Jersey. Tell me a little bit about that time.
I tell you what, that is the true beginning. Like that is the beginning. So to say that you were there in the beginning, you really were. There's not many people that could say that. So it's funny, Jimmy, because you and I met when I was a kid. I was 14 years old. I came to work in that gym as like a floor tech, what we call a floor tech today, right? I came in as I was a urinal cake changer and a locker room cleaner upper, because that's all that the owner Harry that we so much love so much would let me do at the time. And when I got there, Matt, for your benefit and the benefit of everyone listening, is Jimmy was managing that gym. Jimmy was he was the pro bodybuilder of the day. Like he was the man in that place. So let's give the kudos there, because I got to give it to him, because Jimmy was like an icon in that place. Like when he was there, it was a show. It really was. But I got a different view of that, right? Because we had a crew of guys, and we talked a little about the dinner over the weekend. And we had a crew of guys that worked there they were all characters. We all had funny, crazy nicknames. But I was a kid. Like I wasn't even used. These guys were they were men. They were grown men. And I was introduced into the gym world in a very interesting way.
We were grown men. We were 24.
Well, to me, you were grown men, right? You guys had driver's licenses, for God's sake. Bars. But so it was interesting how I got into the business, but I loved it. And I loved it for the reasons that the culture that was created amongst that group, which I think set the pace for a lot of things that I did later in culture creation for my own staff and in my own gyms when I first opened my own businesses. Because it was the fun that I had that drove me to want to come back there until I learned how to love fitness, because I kind of wanted to work out. I was a big kid. I was playing sports, and I was hitting sand weights in my basement. So when I was able to go to this gym, I was like, wow, I'm training with bodybuilders right here, guys like Jimmy that were in the place, and it was inspiring. So I loved being there for the reason of I wanted to just be around those guys, and then getting a job there let me spend more time there. So it was like feeding my addiction. I loved fitness. I loved working out. And then I got to be around these people and the personalities. And listen, you talk about a gym in Jersey. It says it all in that sentence, but all the personalities and the characters in that place. We probably could have done a reality show back then, and we'd be doing this from Jimmy's jet plane or a yacht somewhere, because it would have been the best. You can't capture that time of the 80s and the 90s and put what went on in there and the clothes they were wearing and the outfits these guys trained in.
Very colorful
area. But we had a good time. So the moral of that whole point of story of my life there was that was a good time for me to learn a lot about the culture of employees in groups loving that business and actually caring about what was going on inside those four walls. So back then, a gym was really, it was your second home, but everybody that was there wanted to be there. No one needed to be there. They all wanted to be there. Like that was the culture. Nowadays you have people that come to the gym because they need to be there, right? Their doctors send them there. They've got an illness. They got to get, they're diabetic, they're pre-diabetic, whatever it is, heart disease. those are need to be there. So the folks that want to be there, it's a different culture. And sometimes when you need to be there, you become a want to be there, right? You become that person because you work out so much, you love it. And once you get that in the gym business, that's kind of cool. And that's what you strive for. So relating it back and fast forwarding, 30 years later.
To Bricktown. I want to go to Bricktown.
So let's go to Bricktown first. So we'll
so hold on a second. So he goes to Arizona College, right? Meets his lovely wife there. They come back to Jersey.
Yeah.
Right. And he's still involved in the gym business. Like he always never left the gym business, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we go back to Bricktown.
Yeah. So
take us
first.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. All right.
All right.
So
take us through that. You go to college, you come back to Jersey, and now we're in Bricktown.
Yes, what I was saying was I already stayed connected. So I worked in gyms the whole time. So while we were in college, I was always hustling in the gyms. I was personal training. I got to a little bit of sales, did some sales management. So I trained in those gyms all the time, and I stayed employed by the gyms the whole time. So when I got back from college, I had left Arizona State. I came back to Jersey, and I got a call from one of my buddies. And he said, hey, one of the guys who trained with, he was part of that crew that trained at one of our original gyms where we were talking about back in Rio. And he says, this guy's, wants to open a gym. He knows you're into that business. He knows you've worked in a lot of clubs. Do you want to get involved? I said, yeah, I'll take a look. And lo and behold, it was a location down in Brick, New Jersey. And I sat there and I looked at this place. I'm like, oh, this kind of looks cool. I didn't know my ass or my elbow about the geography back then. I didn't have demographic software or a real estate director or all, I didn't have. It was kind of like you got there, you hung out in the parking lot, you went and talked to a couple of the merchants from the other stores, the pizzeria guy, the dry cleaner, the bagel shop guy, and you just asked a lot of questions. So then I really got the vibe for it. I really wanted to do that. So I had to come up with the money. The first gym was Brick, New Jersey.
So at this point, I'm going to ask you the question: what were you doing for money? So, see, I want to show everybody where you started and where you are now. What were you doing for money as you're looking to open the gym?
So I was doing what every other college dropout does for money. They're either working at a landscaping company, they're working at the gym during the day or at night. It was like I was doing whatever I could. And then the one thing I did on the side was I was also working for my father on the weekends too at his store in Staten Island. And when I came to him with this idea, because I'd have two nickels to rub together, because the guy says, all right, you got to come up with 60 grand. We got to come up with 60 each for the down payment for the SBA loan. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, that was a little bit of a hiccup I wasn't ready for. And then I realized, I'm like, okay, let me go talk to my father, see what direction he can offer me. So I went and I met with Dad. I said, listen, I'm like, I got this opportunity to get involved in the gym business. We got to go up with 60,000. He just looked at me kind of like 60,000. What are you getting 60,000 for? You're probably making $8 an hour right now. And I was like, $8.50. So he says to me, I'll give you half. You got to get the other half from your uncles. He's like, but there's a couple of contingencies. He's like, the first thing is you've got to go and work in this gym. And there was a very successful gym in Staten Island that he would drive by every day on the way back and forth to his business. And he said, no matter what time of day I go there, and what time of day it is, that parking lot's always packed. He goes, go work there and see what they're doing. He goes, and then come talk to me. So that was like level one stuff I had to do. So what do? I go there and I apply for a job, and I literally take a minimum wage job as a starting trainer there. Now, mind you, I had been to college. I've got over 100 credits, 2/3 of them in exercise physiology, every science class, because I studied exercise science. I loved it. Subsequently, did not graduate. I dropped out, but I had so many credits and so much education. And by the way, I was ongoing. I was taking personal training courses, so I was well in tune and well overqualified for the job that I had applied for. And quickly, they realized the same thing. I went in there, and almost immediately, it was within the first 14 days, I was already, they were progressing me into sales manager, then training manager, and I went through all their progressions there. But while I was doing all of that, as I was telling you, Jimmy, at dinner, at lunch, I would bring my Tupperware and I would sit with Grace, who was the bookkeeper, and I would ask her, why do we process credit cards when I do a sale? Why do you use this method? And why do you want us to have this type of agreement? How, the term of the agreement? Why do we EFT? Why do we want checking accounts? I was asking all of these questions because I didn't know the answers to them, and I knew that was kind of some of the stuff that Dad was going to want to hear about. And I had a yellow pad, literally, I had a yellow legal notepad, and I would write this stuff down, and I would just flip the page, write the stuff down. Then after the gym would close, whether it was on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Tuesday at midnight, no matter what it was, I would stay and I would train. I would do my second workout. And what would I do? I would walk around with the two guys that clean the place, and I would ask them, what are you using on the floor? Why do you use this on the blocker over here? Why do you use that on the tile in there? Why do you spray this down the locker? And I was writing down the whole maintenance curriculum because the gym was always spotless and it was a very successful club. Right. So a lot of times you hear this in business, rather than reinventing a wheel, if you have a wheel that runs really, really well, you should kind of look at why the wheel runs well and copy part of that wheel, or the blueprint for it at least, right? So that's what I was doing. I was looking at all these different things, understanding why their juice bar was such an important component of that gym, and the thing was unbelievable, not just for the cash flow of it, but for the culture that it created within the gym. People hung around there. They kind of like they had tables set up. They had people at the bars, and it would literally look like a social environment, and it didn't look like a gym. And I was like, well, that's kind of new. We didn't see that in some of the gyms we worked out back in the day. And I started writing. So then I would take all of these notes, and there were pages. And every week I would go to my dad, and I would sit with him, and I would flip the pages, and I would show him this is okay. Here, go this is. And I almost started to create a little bit of an operations manual with it, which back then I didn't call it that. It was really just notes to show my father that I was learning and gathering the information that I knew was going to be important to him about how the business made money and why it was successful.
So eventually you show him the paperwork, everything that you've been put together. Your uncle, right, gives some of the money. Your pops gives some of the money. You open Brick.
Yep. So they gave us a loan. So two of my uncles. So I had a loan to three of them, right? So my father and my two uncles split them. Yeah. So I had to write 3 checks every month to those guys. So I cut a deal with them. I think it was a 6% interest rate that I paid these guys. It was a 3-year note. I won't forget the terms because it was so ingrained in my head. And my partner's father gave him his end. So they lent us the money. They took a roll with us. We were able to get the loan, and then month one, we'd have to start writing the checks for the loans, right? I mean, we got to start making the paybacks. And I always laugh about this, and this is the truest part of this story that you will ever hear that's so accurate, because it is so close and dear to my heart. We would literally sit and open the checkbook and write the checks out of all the mortgages that we do. So we had the SBA loan, which was a pretty big loan. That loan was like, I think, $500,000. I mean, now our gyms, I wish I could build a gym that big for $500,000. I can't. But it was a big, but to me that was like Mount Everest. That was a huge amount of money because I didn't have that kind of money. But when we first sat down to write the checks, my father, Uncle Buddy, and Uncle Frank, their checks got written first, and my partner's father check got written first. And the irony part about that is, the truth of the matter is, as we always said, that these guys will show up on our doorstep if we don't pay them. The bank is not going to show up on our doorstep. They're going to make us a little miserable, but they're not going to show up on our doorstep. And we don't know what happens when they do. So we literally would write these. So we write those checks out. And what I would do is, I was telling you, Jimmy, a little personal fact here. I would write my uncles and my father included, a note every month with the check, and I would handwrite the note. I'm sorry, guys. That's okay. Let me put this on.
That's okay. I got us connected. So
that's okay. That's your uncle.
That's my uncle calling. He wants his money.
Waiting for his last payment, saying, "Hey, can I get equity now instead of payment?"
So I would write these great notes to them, and I was telling Jimmy a story. At one of the parties to that point, my Uncle Frank, we were sitting in my backyard, and we used to have these big family parties at my house. It was my way of celebrating with everybody, and we'd have it wound up being like a weekend long party. It was supposed to be just Labor Day, but it wound up like I'd be finding cousins in my backyard for 3 days and 4 days, and I was like, "Get the hell out already! Come on, we had enough now." So, but one of my uncles said to me, we laughed, and he's looking around the backyard, and he looks at me, and he goes, "I should have taken the equity." Yeah. Because he wanted a straight loan. They wanted to do an interest loan payment, which I was fine, but he probably should have taken a little bit of equity, because it might have been a bit of a bigger payoff at the end of the day. But that was gym number one, right? That was my first gym. It was Brick, New Jersey, and I call that geographically successful, Jimmy.
But at that point, did you think about franchising, or it was just like, I'm opening a gym, right? At what point? So then you opened the second one.
Well, Jimmy, let's backtrack a little bit. So obviously you work in a gym, and then you open up your own. What was going on in your head that made you say, okay, what do I want to do different? How can I differentiate? Like, what was that moment where you're like, I want to do this because, like, did you see a gap in the local gyms? I mean, I know back in the day, like the Golds, the World, the Powerhouse, they were more of like a hardcore type of gym. And then, when you came out and you started Retro, it kind of revolutionized the way that we picture gyms, in today's age. So was there some type of aha moment that you had that made you say, I can do this differently and be successful?
So that happened, Matt, that's a great question. That happened 4 years later, right? 5 years later. So my first gym, no, I didn't have the aha moment yet, but I realized, oh man, there's a huge opportunity in this business. My original gym was open the gym. I differentiating for me then was offering, more personal training and more nutrition services. And there was a company that Jimmy and I saw it go from its birth, from nutritionalysis to Apex to now it's called .fit. We were there that whole time. So we, utilizing those strategies and trying to encompass a person's whole fitness. So that's what I thought was a differentiator, and which it was at that time. But the differentiator changes. It's in fact changing right now as we speak, right? So what makes you different today was certainly what made you different from 10 years ago. And we can say that about probably any industry. But for those that are listening, for their benefit in business, what I realized so Carmelo was born in 2001. So right when my first daughter was born, I started to realize that there was a shift happening. That was a couple of years after I opened my first gym. I opened my first gym in '97. And I started to pay attention to other things beside what I wanted and loved about the gym. I started to think about, what does my customer want? Who is my customer? And then I started to get more educated on demographic data and understanding the consumer. And I started using data from my own system to see who my customer was. I would run age reports. I would run male-female reports. I would run check-in time of day reports, trying to see trends. And there was a ton of them. They were so black and white. And they were simple back then. They were very simple trends. So I took, and the bones of those trends that I used then, I still use today in evaluating how a gym should look and feel and behave. So it was then when I started Retro, which was years later, after I opened my second gym, had more data. I was opening my third gym, had more data. And that's when I realized, okay, I have to change. I have to make a substantial change, which is when I deviated from the original path that I had come out of, which was, that old, Powerhouse Gold Worlds, old school gym kind of curriculum that I loved, but that wasn't who the member was at that time.
Right.
And I can remember in 2004 when I trademarked Retro. In 2005, I converted my first gym. I was so disciplined about it and passionate about it that my original gym we talked about in Brick, I sold that gym because it didn't fit my new model. It didn't fit where the business was going. So I literally sold that gym. Now it's ironic because that gym today is a Retro Fitness because it's since converted. The owners that bought it came to me and wound up buying a franchise from me and converted it. It's a very successful gym in the model that we use today. So, wow. But I was convicted about it. I had such conviction. I said, this model doesn't fit my square footage. It doesn't fit my customer. I couldn't fathom converting it back then. It was easy for me just to open a new box.
So you move forward with Retro. Where did Retro, the name, come from?
So one night when you met Carmelo.
Is it one of those stories?
It's one of those stories. Then you met my daughter, so you've seen Carmela, right?
Yes.
She's 18 years old, right? So I was rocking Carmela to sleep. I was on the night shift, right? When she was a baby, I had that shift. And I'm in there, and I got my notepad that we always talk about. You always got to keep a notepad when you're in business. I had my notepad, and I had a couple of reports that I had run. So talking about the demographic stuff we talked about. So I had ran some gender, some age stuff, and I started looking. I said, wow, there was an enormous consistency in the amount of Generation X people I was acquiring. And why was I acquiring so many? The reason for they were referring, the atmosphere I had created, the music I was playing, the color scheme I was using at that gym at the time. I had realized that I had a specific demographic that I was 80+% of my members were coming from. So I said, rather than going, the 80-20, rather than trying to get the other 20% and just trying to appease them, I had this big group that was already saying yes and loving us at a high level. So I started to think about who and what would be attracted to, what name, what type of brand. And I started thinking about Generation X and pop culture, and then the word retro popped into my head. And so I wrote it down and I circled it. And because I was thinking of everything from, if you look at the original retro fitness gyms, they had like Johnny Rocker bar stools in there,
Right,
and black and white checker floors, and then we went hardcore into the 80s theme stuff as well, because that was the music we were playing. Like you can go into any retro fitness. If I throw on some Motley Crue, you're going to get some people that are going to be very happy, right? I mean, it just happens. And I remember in some of my clubs, my father's gym in Sayreville, the funniest thing, he literally had a cardboard cutout of Ronald Reagan at the front desk. It was like a full size. It was hysterical, but the members loved it because he was iconic in that period. So we themed it pretty well, and we played that really well. And when our mail pieces went out, the original mail piece I did for Retro Fitness said it had a Rubik's Cube. There were three images: a Rubik's Cube, an Atari joystick, and a pair of Vans sneakers on the front. Now, mind you, I don't think at the time I had copyright usage of any of those images. So I also wasn't as big as I am now. So today I probably wouldn't have used that without getting the proper copyright. But then we just grab an image. But we would send it and we wrote, "Do you remember when?" And then you'd flip it over and it said a gym was affordable. And then we said $19.99 a month. And it was like blowing people away because remember, back then everyone was doing $39 and $49 and even $59 a month in that market, in the suburban New Jersey markets. So we came in at $19. We really changed the culture at the time of what people's expectations were for a gym, because when you walked in, you got a $59 or $69 a month gym. I wasn't giving you crap. You were getting top of the line treadmills from Life Fitness. You were getting top of the line hammer strength. You were getting top of the line. I mean, we equipped the clubs super well for that price point. So it was like instant success.
Matt,
go ahead, Jim.
All right, so the franchise thing, you decide to franchise. How hard was it back then to start a franchise and create that franchise booklet and all that stuff that has to be cookie cuttered throughout? How did you manage that?
I think that's one of the things that most people underestimate is the process of what you just said, because you can't franchise something that's not systemized. So the first thing is you have to have a very strong, because I get this question all the time from budding entrepreneurs of all businesses, not just fitness. I want to franchise my brand. I'm like, great, how many units you have? And sometimes they'll say 0, and I just look at them, I'm like, how could you have 0? How could you franchise something you don't even know if it works, or you haven't built once or twice yourself? Before I built any franchise, even when I did the yoga business, I built 2 yoga jobs. I put my money in, my investors, my partners' money in, and we built those businesses. And then I had something to present. It's difficult to just go and franchise it. It's really hard. And I say it's hard because I think back to the years it took to build what was the operations and the system model. And then it's, franchising is different than running. You might be a great technician of running your gym or running your business, but you may not be a great technician of running other people that run that gym or run that business. And it's like the E-Myth, Michael Gerber's book. It's a great book to read if you haven't read it, and if some of your listeners benefit, they should absolutely pick that book up. It'll give you the understanding of the different hierarchies of types of people and how they behave. So you've got the owner, the manager, and the technician. That's what Michael Gerber talks about in the books. And there are 3 different people with 3 different job descriptions with 3 different personality types and skill sets. So I was a great operator of the gym business. It didn't mean I was going to be a great franchisor. It so happened that I had the benefit and the blessing of being a good people person. I was able to talk to people very well. I was able to listen very well. So when I got into franchising, communication for me came really easy. And that is the business of franchising. It's really a business of communication, because I have this great thing. It's your brand, it's your baby. And then you're going to hand it to someone. So if I don't communicate how I want you to handle my baby, your expectations might be different. So that's a different business model. Forget about all the legal stuff, all of the expectations, all the obligations. Just that one psychological highway has to be understood how you're going to drive on it together.
Right. Did you have to? Well, yeah, you had 2 clubs, right? Before you started franchising.
I was just opening the 3rd.
The 3rd, right? Okay. So when you decided to franchise, did you have to go back and fix everything, or did you just roll right into, like, again, it's a system. Did you have that system already planned, or you're like, let's franchise and like we got to go back and fix this and then franchise?
So you have to do some things differently.
To build the model.
You have to make it duplicatable. So the system has to be able to be duplicated by others with the same product, process, and people, right? Those 3 important pieces everyone talks about. You hear about the show, The Profit. They talk about that all the time, but that's a very true statement. So you've got to be able to have all of those things systemized. Now, it's hard to systemize people, that's the hardest part. The product and the process, we can get down really tight. So we got that down really tight. And then we worked on the people part. How do we train the people? Because that was really important. The who was really important in the model. And so that's what I went back and we worked a lot on. I was very fortunate in the early years. I had some really good people come to me early on that were just really wanted to learn, and they wanted to be part of the system. And every franchise system has its own difficulties at some point, whether it be the location analysis or whether it be the wrong franchisee at the time, or there could be lots of challenges you could have. But if you have down a couple of those things, like the product and the process, you can solve for so many of the other challenges that'll come up. So that's what I had to go back and work on, Jimmy. And we ran a really good gym. My gyms, the reason why I started franchising was because people kept coming to me to want to invest in my gyms because we were milling the money through. I mean, we were more profitable than your average business, let alone your average gym. I had a high level of return. The ROI on my particular gyms was very good because of how I chose to operate them. So
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, Matt.
I think it's interesting too, and I mean, for those of you who might know the story of Retro and your own personal story, Eric, is when you were on Undercover Boss. I mean, you pretty much laid out the systems, and I mean, literally, you had the good and you had the bad. But I mean, those are the struggles that people have on a day-to-day basis when you're running a business. You have people who they live your vision. They were you in the gym back when you first started, and they have that aspiration to, I want to build something. I need to get as much knowledge and experience as possible. But then, so how do you take that system and just scale it tremendously? I mean, you have 150 different locations now in 17 states. I mean, obviously, Jimmy mentioned in the intro, $150 million a year, business. How do you go from 1 to 3 to now 150 with another, what is it, like another 150 in the pipeline that you're looking?
Pipe's growing every week. The pipe's growing. So yeah, I mean, Matt, this is a very important question. When you think about scale and growth, it's at that point it becomes the people you surround yourself with. I mean, there's no business that could run any size larger than 1 or 2 stores. And I remember I got some really good advice early on. I was at a Tony Robbins convention, and I had learned a lot from some of the other leadership people that were there. And one of the things they said is, listen, there's only a certain amount of hours in a week that you can physically work. You cannot create any more. And if you have X amount of businesses, X amount of locations, how many can you really physically go to? How many can you run at this high level? And you sit, you think, and you say, yeah, well, definitely 1. Okay, I can do 2. I can run 2 gyms, and I did. I got to my 3rd gym, and it started to say, I'm either going to get divorced or I'm not going to be able to have my kids. Like, you start to realize that, what are you doing and for what reason? You have to realize there has to be another level that you have to start considering. And that's when you have to realize you need more people, and that's delegating. That's the entrepreneur's dilemma, is that letting go, that delegation. So being tried and true as a type A entrepreneur, I had a very difficult time learning that. I was lucky enough and benefited enough from some of the people that I surrounded myself with that I learned early to start delegating to qualified people that can do things there's people that were doing things much better than I was that worked for me, and they were awesome. One of my top VPs, he was with me from the beginning. He was an excellent executor at the day-to-day operations in those gyms, better than anyone I've ever seen to this day. And he still does it at the highest level. And now he trains people to do that, but there's no one better than him. He was better than me at doing that stuff. So it was nice to be able to take that 40 hours of work and give it to someone else. Because it was 40 hours, maybe 50. And if you're really good, it's probably 60. So it's that infatuation with the business that makes you realize you need to have other people with you. So I started to scale who was with me. When I first started Retro, there was only 3 of us. There was my assistant and this guy I just told you about. And then as I grew, we had to grow that team. Because I wanted to get better. I wanted to be able to, you say, at what point do you realize you could scale? Because in the beginning, I didn't think about scaling like that. I was at 2, 3 gyms. I'll make a ton of money. It'll be great for me, great for my family, and I'm good. And I was. But I realized that I really wanted to spread what we were doing. And I really wanted to give other people the opportunity to live the lifestyle that I was living. So it wasn't really about me anymore, because I had already made my money. I had a ton of money. A lot of money in the bank. We had a great house. I had beautiful kids, beautiful wife. I was good. I could punch my clock and just keep doing what I'm doing and ride out to the sunset 20 years and call it a day. But that wasn't what I was about. I love this business so much. And I don't only love fitness, I love watching other entrepreneurs become really successful. And when they're not, it actually, I was telling Jimmy this, it really personally affects me, because not every location works out, and not every person's right to do this, and they get involved and it doesn't work out. And that actually personally affects me. It just does. It just bothers me, because I want to put everything in for you, because I want you to see and reap the rewards that I know you can, that I've witnessed and that I've been part of. So getting started early on, my reason for why I scaled was completely different from the reason why I started. And that's why you start a franchise. If you start a franchise just to make more money for yourself, that's a problematic foundation, because franchising is about networking and other people growing, because you're growing other entrepreneurs. You are literally creating, educating, teaching, call it whatever, mentoring, use the words you want, fill in the gap, another human being for their benefit, and you're being compensated for your time doing it. When you look at it that way, it changes things.
So with all these franchises that you have, meanwhile, I want to state that you have stepped down from the CEO position, correct?
Yes. And
you're riding out to the sunset? You're riding off to the sunset?
Not so fast, big fella.
As a matter of fact, for those who are listening, he is in the office of the Retro Fitness. Can you tell me your location?
Yeah, I'm in Apopka. Yeah,
he's in Apopka Retro Fitness, and he's he is hands on, man. This guy does not stop. And whenever we talk on the phone, he goes, "You know what, Mentis? You're just like me." I'm like, "Don't put me in that category." He goes, "No, you're just like me." And I'm like, "No." And you know what? He won't stop.
He's inspiring is what it
is.
I mean, the fact that, before we even started, I said this to you, Eric, that I see so many entrepreneurs who they make their money, and you kind of alluded to it, a little bit ago. They make their money and they walk away, or they make their money and they put people in positions where they're at the beach every day, all day, not worrying about their business, and they let other people run it. You're literally still in the trenches. I mean, from day one to now, from nothing to the millions and everything in between, you've stuck with it, your blood, sweat, and the grind and the hustle. For anyone who's listening to this, you can't help but be inspired by that. I mean, it's the reason I built my business. It's the reason Jimmy built his business, because you have that passion for something and you just keep going because you wake up excited to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, and say that you get excited every morning you wake up to go into work, but you have that passion. It's what gets you out of bed to make you want to go do it.
Here's the thing. He's got that fight.
Yeah.
Okay? See, you can wake up and say, "You know what? I don't freaking do this no more." I'm sure he's had them. I've had them, but you have a fight in you. And that fight, when you start something, you have to you have to find a way, and that way, and those people who have that, I have to find a way, it just bleeds into other avenues, and I can say that with Beauty Fit. I've had other business and stuff like that, but obviously we see how Beauty Fit grown in the last 10 years, right? From one product, I could stop at 5, right? How many companies have done 100 million with 5 products? How many companies have done 100 million with 1 product? But it's that fight. It's like, let me see, and open doors, and you open doors. It's not the business; it's the person behind the business.
And it goes beyond you, and that's what it is. I always found, and I see it with myself and others like you guys, it has to go beyond the 4 walls of your own universe, and that's really what it is for me. I have family members that are owners of Retrofits. I have cousins, brothers, father, best friends that are in that system, and many people that have become like family to me that are in that system. So even though I've got a really strong, great guy running the day-to-day, I still, I'm still obviously a huge owner of Retro Fitness. I have my equity stake and I'm on the board. I just know that there's other things I need to be doing to continue doing what I'm passionate about. And I'm passionate about a couple of things, right? I'm passionate about health and wellness. We know that. I'm passionate about people being their best them. And that comes in a couple of forms. And obviously it's in the fitness world. It's now going into the anti-aging world. And it's also in the business world. I know that me being able to work with others to explore their own and create their own entrepreneurial path is something that I'm very passionate about, because I know the rewards of that lifestyle. I know the unique personalities. Not everyone's designed to work, a 9 to 5, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. those creative types, or those, certain extra, I got extra gas in the tank types, I call them, right? They want to do a little more, they should be able to. So for me, and I still love being in a gym, right? So I still own a Retro Fitness, of course, and I come into my own gym because it's where I started. It's something that I always enjoy, and quite frankly, I know how to make money in this business, so I keep it because it's a good asset of mine. But I also love the clanking of the weights. I love being able to go out there, and the reason why you built the pit gym, you just love that environment. I love having and I got a lot of offices. Not all of them are as nice as this with a Christmas tree in it, but I enjoy coming to this office when I visit here. It's a great place for me to stop. But the reason I do it, your why is it becomes much bigger, and it changes, it evolves, and as mine has changed and evolved, it's allowed, and Retro Fitness has allowed me these different pathways for me to go down and start doing some of this other, exploring some of these other entrepreneurial experiences that I want to do. But like I said, Jimmy, I can't go and lay on a beach. I'm fair skinned. I certainly suck at golf, so I'm not going to go do that. And I can't fish, even though I'd like to say I do. I don't. So for me, my golf, my fish, my beach is the gym, is right. The business, is being involved in entrepreneurship, is looking for the next answer, because you want to help those people, because you get questions all the time, and then you see these certain products, and you think to yourself, I could probably do that a little bit better than it's being done. Right. It's not ego. It's not ego. I swear it's not ego. It's not your ego. If you really want to, you want your customer, you want the person that you're sending out that box of products to say, try this one now.
Well, I have, and I do.
So now, Eric, here's a question for you. Have you always had, and Jimmy, I don't know why we've never asked other people this question, but Eric, have you always had like that entrepreneurial drive, that entrepreneurial spirit, or was it kind of like, I'm going to dip my toes into owning a gym, and from there you kind of got the bug of, okay, cool, I have all of these ideas, and rather than working for someone, I'm working towards something, meaning building, your business. So was there a period where you always just had the idea like, hey, I want to do my own thing, I want to build a business? Or was it just kind of one of those things that you eased your way into, and then all of a sudden you were just like taking over?
I think 100% I've always been an entrepreneur. I've never had the idea of going and working for a big, and I'd be recruited by, as I was scaling my own business early on, the interesting thing about the gym business is you have members that do everything. So I would constantly have my own members that were very successful people in corporate America doing some really great things out there that would say, hey, Eric, do you want to come work with us? You want to? And I was like, yeah, no. Like it was never the thought. And it was like security, and it was benefits, and it was I was like, yeah, no. Now, my wife, maybe Kim, probably would have hoped I might have said yes one of those days, because everybody hears and thinks it's all this. It's really this going up, and it's great, but it's not straight up. Nothing is straight up, including my own success. But the answer to your question, the simple answer is no. I've never considered ever a day that I would do that. It just wasn't in my DNA, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it just wasn't for me, because I don't work well in that environment. It's just not. It's not a strength for me. It's a weakness.
Hey, undercover boss. I mean, even personally, I've never asked you this. I don't know why. How did obviously there's marketing behind it, right? But how did it all come about, and how comfortable or uncomfortable did you feel? Because did you walk that fine line, or were you really you? I mean, can you?
That was much harder than people think. Like, was it fun? It was fun after. There was not a minute of fun during. Like, people, that was heartache for 10 straight days for me. Like, it really was not a good experience from Eric Casaburi's side, from my perspective. Mm-hmm. It was a great experience for the business. It was a great experience for the people that watched on TV, of course. It was a great experience after, when we could talk about it and I could laugh about some of the things that happened. But it came about because my PR firm called me up and they said, hey, the producers had seen me on a couple of shows. I think I was on MSNBC. I was on Fox a couple of times, Fox Business. I've done the circuit on a lot of the big TV station news shows. And they said, listen, we've done a lot of food concepts in Undercover Boss. If you notice, if you look back at the traditional season, it was a lot of restaurant concepts. Right. They said, we want to do something different. And we saw this guy, and they found out that I was a client of this PR firm at the time, that Retro was at the time. And so they called me and they said, hey, I remember it was right before Valentine's Day, because it was in February. And the producer, so they connect with the producer, and then Chris Carlson, the executive producer, calls me up and he says, we're excited. We think you're going to be on season 5, which was the next season. And I kind of thought I had, a little bit of time to think about it. So same day, we're leaving my cousin's house, my cousin Andre and Leo's. We're literally leaving the house, going back to my house, and the phone rings again. And I'm in the car, and I'm like, and Kim's sitting next to me, and I'm like, yeah, it was California number again. I'm like, I just talked to this guy. He's like, okay, we got to change the plans. He's like, you're going to be in season 4. He's like, you got to be ready next month. We're going to start filming in March. And I was looking at the phone. He goes, oh, and stop shaving. And he hung up on me. Like, I looked at him, I'm like, that was the craziest freaking call I've ever had in my life. This guy, I didn't even have the paper. This guy's like, stop shaving. I'm like, and we did. I think we started filming March 10th. I think that date 6 months. It was less than a month, because it was. I think it was Valentine's Day where we were at my cousin's for dinner. And so it came at me like 100 miles an hour. And so I didn't have a lot of time to think. And that's probably better, because had I had too much time to think, I probably would have been like, I don't know, this is, and I was, what, it's going to be great for the business. My attorneys ran through all the paperwork, and next thing I know, it was like a carnival. Like the carnival showed up at my house, and it is a carnival. Like the crazy thing about that, that production's amazing how they do that. Because they're putting on a ruse, right? And it's very, very genuine how they do everything. It's authentic. But it takes a lot of people. So there's a cavalry of these trucks and RVs with all this equipment in it, and you just travel from place to place. It's like a carnival. As I said to Kim, I'm like, this is the only thing I can tell you. It's like being in a carnival, and you're staying in these weird, seedy, hotel motels, and I was way out of my comfort zone. It was awkward. It was this experience was just really odd. It was like a bad long nightmare, but. For the benefit of, while I was doing it, though, I really got into it because I was in the gym and I love being in the gym. And
Right.
The hardest part for me was not saying my name, right? Because I'm so used to, being in sales, you introduce
Right.
it's eye contact and you say your name and you learn their name. And like having to do that was the hard part about that. But it came about in a very interesting way. They called us and I was willing to do it. It was fantastic for the retro brand because it got us exposure across the country, where we were really well known in the tri-state area, like New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. Like we had a great footprint, so we were well known. But no one knew us in Florida, no one knew us in Chicago, no one knew us in California, and we have gyms in all those places now. So it got us across, and then it went nationwide, and then it went international. So, and I still, because it replays, guys, I get emails and hits on LinkedIn, hits on Instagram, and DMs from all over the place, from places around the world. In fact, just today, someone from the UK sent me a really awesome message, because sometimes they never saw it, they see the repeat. It's
Right.
3 years later, not 4 years later.
Yeah.
And they send me these really things. You're such a kind person. It's great. And we're so sorry about that crazy girl. Like it's the same, over and over. But I've had rabbis, I've had priests, nuns, I've had a lot of religious people also email me, because if you recall in some of the scenes there, I spent some time. I have a beautiful big statue, and Jimmy, you might have saw it. I moved it down here to Florida, of the Blessed Mother in my yard in my house in Jersey, and I took this 9-foot statue that came from a monastery, and I took it down here as well. And I spent some time in the show because it was important for them to capture who I was as a person. That was the only thing I asked Chris Carlson, the producer. I said, listen, I'll give you me, 100% entrepreneur me, crazy me, OCD me. You'll get me 100%. I'm not an actor. I'm a real guy. I'm like, but you got to give them everything of me. I'm like, if you're going to film what they call the home package, my personal life is part of it. Like we're an old school Catholic family. We do church on Sunday. We say grace and we do prayers at night with the kids. Like, and I just wanted them to know that was a part of my life. And so hold on, guys. Look at my lights went out.
Your time's up.
Time's up. Look at that. It won't even stay on either. Look at that. They don't want me to. There we go. So that was part of so when we talked about it, they did the home package really well because they captured a very authentic version of what was going on in my home life as well as in the business. And I think it played well. So a little fun fact, we are still the number 2 episode ever in Undercover Boss views.
Wow.
So we had 9.5 million views, and the only season that beat us was season 1, episode 1. So their first show,
Really?
biggest bang, is they promoted the shit out of it. But our episode was the #2 episode of all time for them. And obviously it really was an entertaining show because we did some unprecedented things. We were the first person on live TV to that someone ever got terminated on. I mean, no, everyone else was always afraid to do it, but my franchisee is a Jersey guy. He's a real player. He was just like me, and he did what he had to do.
Now, Eric, do you think more business owners, and when I'm going to say business owners in a grand scale, somebody who has multiple franchises or a multi-million-dollar business, do you feel that doing something like what you did on Undercover Boss was beneficial because it got you in the trenches of sorts where you kind of had to do a deep dive and an audit of your business of, are the systems working? Are the employees working? Do we need to make changes? Do we need to do this? Do we need to do that? Like, do you feel that more people need to do that with their business these days versus taking a back seat and having a general manager doing that or having somebody else do that? Do you really feel that the entrepreneur, the founder needs to kind of get his hands dirty or her hands dirty and do that deep dive?
Yeah, Matt, the answer to that is emphatically yes. So there's certain things you can delegate and there's certain things you cannot. So let me be clear on what I said earlier. Delegating doesn't mean you delegate those kinds of things. So what your brand's expectations are, or how they're being treated, or how they're being executed upon. As an owner of a business, if at the end of the day you're writing the check, if your name's on the bottom right corner, you're responsible. Like you're obligated. You're the obligor. You have to make sure that the train is running on the tracks correctly. You can have people that help you do that, but in the day, if you have a vision for your brand, you want it to be a certain way. You need to communicate that. You need to monitor that and measure that. However, whatever your measurement tools are, whether it's data, whether it's physically going in. So being part of it and going back in, I've done it with my own business. I fell victim to that. I've got so many other things going on, and then I go back to my own gym. I'm like, that's not how we answer the phone, or that's not how we do a tour of a gym. And you got to go back in, and you just got to. It's like a piano, right? If you ever tuned a piano, those strings never stay tuned. I mean, they just don't. A piano will naturally want to pull itself out of tune. So you have to come back in and tune the piano, get everything aligned again.
Right.
And it happens everywhere because even your best manager, sometimes they just get a little lazy, or they get maybe comfortable, and comfort isn't where you want your manager all the time. You want them to be excited and be moving and be progressing. So complacency is a problem, and complacency could be a problem for your business in your vision. So you may have done great, and then you just start leveling off here, but no, you still want to do this, right? So you've got to get rid of complacency. How do you do that? You've got to get in there and start measuring things and looking at things. So doing Undercover Boss was a physical experience of that. I got to go in there and really see that, and I was like, wow, we learned. I got a tremendous amount of takeaways from that. Some of the stuff that never came on TV. Oh my God, Jimmy, tons. I had my notepad. I would get back to that hotel room. I didn't have a whole lot to do because they didn't let me have any electronics. I had no laptop. They didn't let me communicate on my phone. You couldn't do.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Really? You sign a whole bunch of documents. You're not allowed to give out.
I would have said goodbye. I gotta go.
They want to be 100% authentic, so they don't want you communicating with anyone. Like, I didn't know where I was going till the morning when they rolled in. Then they handed me a piece of paper. Here's where we're going today. I had no idea what gym we were headed to. It was really crazy because they would kind of like sleep us in a place that was kind of close to that location, and then you wouldn't know which one. And I couldn't even figure it out sometimes. I was like, where the hell do they have us going? I'm like, we're 20 miles from the nearest one in my head that I know, and you didn't know. So you had a lot of time. So I was writing down the 8, 10, 12 hours that I was working in the gym that day. You only saw 10 minutes at a clip, or 5 minutes, or 8 minutes. Like, we were in that gym for 10 hours. Like, I had to work a whole shift, whether it made it on TV or not. I had to still work that shift. And while I was there, I was working that shift. And what am I doing? I was paying attention, looking at things, figuring things out. I'm like, and mind you, I know who the franchise owner is in my head. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to tell this guy this, because after this show is over, because he's got to know that. So what I did after went way beyond the show,
Did you ever want to break character?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Twice. Once where it's on camera where you actually see it happening, and once when it didn't make it on the cutting floor. But yeah, I mean, there was at the end, when we got to that radical point, when that girl was telling off that member, I was. You know how big a front desk is. You working on a front desk. I mean, I was 3 feet from that in reality. I mean, I was in earshot. Now, I think that was probably one of, and I've got to listen. I'm an Italian guy. I got a little bit of a temper sometimes, right? I mean, it comes. I was angry. Like I was like, shit, because that's just like, hey, you're fired on the spot kind of thing in my like in my mind. Like, you got to go home. You got to go home right now. Like, kind of. And I was like, wow. So, and I knew that was the only time where I knew, like, I was like, okay, there's a camera somewhere. Like, it was weird. Like, the whole time you don't think about it because you're working, and I forget I had a wig on, I forget I have glasses. Like, I forget all of that because I'm in there and I'm in a gym. And to me, I'm in a gym. Like, I'm gonna make a shake. I'm gonna talk to, like, I'm in the gym, and I was working the shift. Like, I did tours. I made shakes all day. Like, I cleaned. I did it. But that was the first time I was like, wait, you're Eric Casaburi. You're not this fucking guy Barry. Like, it was like in my head, I was like, whoa, I had to stop. But then I was like, okay, bigger picture thing. Well, this will get addressed, and I didn't take my path to the end. I took a different path to the end. But we still got. It was the same end, just a different means.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was. And there was some stuff that, like, there was just a ton more. Like, there was so, like, they could have made that a 2-hour special. I mean, it was like it really could have. And it would have been great. Anybody, the producers, you should have done the second cut of that.
Did anybody recognize you?
No.
But didn't say anything?
No. So one area, I thought I felt someone, because you could feel it. Like, you could feel I felt it. And what they do, if I would say that in the mic, they would instantly send out a fake camera to that person and distract them, like they're on a TV show. So they would bring one of the fake cameras. He's really, like, they got these camera guys walking around. Some of them, there was just no film of it. It was just literally a dummy camera. And they would roll up to you and they just get, like, in your face the camera. Hey, Jimmy, and they would just distract you. And then they would get you to, like, kind of like just get out of the scene kind of and get away from me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was, they are awesome at what they do. Just awesome.
This is great. So, man, I can go on and on and on. It's like I've never talked to this guy, right? But we always talk, and it's like I got so many questions. But so what's next? So you're doing, am I allowed to say about the
Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing this anti-aging thing, right? Is this a franchise thing again? Are you?
As I said, everything starts out as not a franchise because you have to perfect the model before you can ask someone else to try to perfect it for you. So we are in the process of perfecting. So we're going to roll out 1 or 2 units. I'll own them. I'll control them. And then because of the way I'm structuring it, it will more than likely be a franchise sooner than later in the anti-aging and wellness space. It's like a revision of what it's like a conversion of med spa and medical and aesthetics, of course. And it kind of, it's merging in a place where, being in the fitness community for so long, we've realized that our gym members should be or is working out and then should be doing a lot of other things at home, because we always talk about the other 23 hours, like what goes on outside the 4 walls of the gym. And that's really where all the magic happens, from recovery to proper nutrition to all these things. And I've always been an advocate of, living your best life. But I more so started focusing in on, I guess, because, a pop, we talk about our parents and focus on and my dad and I look at, like, how some people are aging, and the last 10 years of most people's lives are just not great. They're just not high quality, and you can think about in your head so many people, whether it's because they don't physically be able to move well, cognitively they're not there. So, my goal, as it was with fitness, was to kind of, how do I improve upon benefiting someone's life, right? So I looked at that, and there's a lot of really cool things, a lot of cool science happening, and looking at, why does age 70 to 80 or 80 to 90 or 90 to 100, whatever it may be, have to be terrible? Like, why does it have to be just large? I was watching. We went to mass on Sunday, and there was this older woman walking out, and she was so hunched over, looking at the ground. And her it looked like, I guess it was her daughter that was helping her walk out. She had a cane, and I was like, man, I wonder if there could have been a few things we could have done to probably fix her, help her, so that she didn't have to walk like that and move like that. It's probably very painful. And there's probably a lot of inflammation happening, and there's lots of reasons why. And sometimes you can figure out some of the reasons why. So this, hold on. You there, guys?
Yep.
Sorry about that. So I think what happens here is this this business model that I'm building out is the next layer of health and wellness. I mean, health and fitness at the end of the day is anti-aging, right? You work out, it's anti-aging. You're doing things in your body,
absolutely,
right? It's at the mitochondrial level. I mean, pick an area, the neurological level. It's anti-aging. And I mean, there was just another study that came out that resistance training with weights, heavy weights, actually has a neurological benefit.
Absolutely.
In addition to the physiological benefits we get.
Yep.
So it's something that really excites me. There's a lot of things. It's everything from doing red light therapy to hormone replacement therapy, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy to different types of skin stuff. Jimmy, you know a lot about that, right? You know, we're going to be looking at your Beauty Fit line for skin stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of additions because we want you to be your best you, right? So that means, you know, looking like your best self, feeling like your best self, doing IV therapies, post-workout IV therapies. You know, you got it banged up at a bar. Maybe you went out and you drank a little bit too much. Okay, well, there's an IV therapy that we can get your nutrients back, get you hydrated again properly. You know, when you're healing, or glutathione, the ultimate antioxidant, taking that. There's all kinds of really awesome things that is now available to the average person, the general consumer, the general population can get their hands on this stuff. It's just how and what do they do in the curriculum and understanding it. So our goal is to put it into like a curriculum, like we do a gym membership. It's to get you to understand how all these other things work and how you can really feel phenomenal when all of your cells are running the right way, when all of your hormones are running the right way, and when your recovery is awesome. You know, 40 some odd years old, you don't have to be all banged up in the morning after you did a great workout. You don't have to be. There's lots of cool things you can do. So the anti-aging is kind of not just anti-aging as opposed to thinking, I want to lift from 130, which I think would be great if we could, but it's also, how do I live it? I'm 45 years old. Why am I training the way I'm training physically in the condition that I'm in and feeling the way I do? It's just because I'm using these tools and I want to share these tools. So that's kind of what we did. So we're putting together some.
I'm going to be one of the franchisees for the anti-aging. Put it in the pit just for me.
There you go. It does go hand in hand with a lot of. It's synergistic with a lot of the industries I've come from, and that's why I'm leveraging knowledge I already have, of course, which will facilitate success. But I'm also leveraging what I'm passionate about, so it keeps me engaged.
Eric, let me tell you, I love you, brother.
I love you too.
I love you.
I know.
Matt,
I love you, man.
Do you have anything for Eric?
I have nothing. I enjoyed the time. There was a ton of value. I feel that not only myself, but I think everybody who's either watching or listening on whatever platform that they're on is just going to love this interview.
Eric, anything you want to, we have tons of listeners, anything that you want to just share, just one thing, one takeaway. I mean, there's a lot of takeaways here. I mean, but that one that could be a sentence, could be a word. What's that one that always?
So for the folks that are listening, that are business savvy, or they're looking and thinking about or considering a business, or they're in business, or they own a business, I think they're working for someone else and they're thinking about business. I would give the bit of advice that I would give to those people watching and those listeners is stick with something that truly excites you and you're passionate about, and understand that if it's something that is, and how do you figure that out? People say, well, I don't know, and I'm not sure, I'm unsure. Ask the question, why? Why do I want to do this? Why? If you keep asking why, you'll get there, right? So I use the power of the question why to those people that are getting into a business and wondering or fearful if they could do it. You'll be able to do it, I assure you, if you are in fact passionate and excited about it, because that enthusiasm will take you, and it may not take you to the exact destination you thought you were headed, but it'll take you to a destination that you should be. So you may have to change the course along the way. The road may do this a little bit instead of this. So if you're passionate and excited about it, it will at least keep you charging down the course. And the end destination might be slightly different than your vision. Like I never imagined I'd be a franchisor in the fitness world. I imagined that I always knew that I loved to help people and I wanted to be part of that. I didn't realize what helping people meant. I thought it was always about their physical wellness, and then wound up being so many other things as well. And then for those that are listening that are fitness enthusiasts, I think the greatest thing in the universe is that you have the opportunity to be and stay healthy, and to condition the temple that you're blessed with. Like your body's just, it is a temple, and treat it accordingly. I mean, and that means taking your supplements, that means getting your sleep, drinking a ton of water, that means hitting the gym, doing your activities. All of that is to maintain what you are blessed to have if you're able to get physically active in any capacity, I mean, I've seen some of my best members and phenomenal athletes are in wheelchairs, and they get after it. If you're able to get after it in any capacity, you are truly blessed because you can take care of what you have, whatever it is, whatever shape, size, male, female, I don't care. Whatever it is that you are gifted with, you got to maintain and manage that. It's your obligation to do that.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, from Mr. Eric Casaburi, the founder of Retro Fitness.
Thanks, guys. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.
Love you, man. Peace.